Hello and welcome to the fourth video in my 10-part series on how organizations burn out their employees. I'm Dr. Geri Puleo, the President and CEO of Change Management Solutions. Now, in these videos, we're going to discuss 10 ways in which organizations unwittingly burn out their employees. And today we're talking about a lack of organizational caring. So the easiest way to identify this lack of organizational caring is with the simple question of who cares? If you're an employee, you want to feel not only that your employer cares about you, but also that they care about your needs, your wants, your professional desires, and have an appreciation for your life outside of work. If an organization doesn't show these things, then they are definitely insensitive. And insensitive employers will never build a vibrant workforce. But let's take a look at what organizational caring actually means. According to Blackwell's Encyclopedia of Management, a caring organization has values and practices that are consistent with and supportive of the ethic of care. Now, this means that the organization supports care of self as connected with others, and that it is committed to maintaining that connection between the organization as a whole and the individual employees. Now, as you may know, I did extensive research on what causes employees to burn out during organizational change. Surprisingly, 85.7% of my participants believed that they received absolutely no care and no support in dealing with their stress and burnout. Now, over 85% is a pretty astonishing number, but what became even more astonishing to me was that 100%, yep, that's all of them, said that they interpreted this lack of organizational help to deal with their stress as proof that their employer did not care about them. Now, this went across all lines of gender, position, the type of company, whether it was a government, a for-profit, or a not-for-profit. So you have to remember that employees are humans, which means employees are emotional beings who want to be treated with respect, compassion, appreciation, and caring. So let's talk a little bit more about the connection between burnout and a lack of organizational caring. This graphic is part of my BDOC model, which I discussed in a little more detail in video 1. Basically, in a nutshell, employees start out hopeful and with high anticipation about working for the employer. But as the company does not meet their needs, they descend into frustration, anger, and apathy prior to experiencing a full-blown burnout. So what are the organizational triggers that indicate a lack of organizational caring? Well, first, it's when organizations don't offer any help, assistance, or any type of resource to help employees do the job for which they were hired. When companies don't provide this support, employees automatically and reasonably interpret this as an indication that the organization does not care about them. And when you believe that your employer really doesn't care, this initially is frustrating. Eventually you become angry, and then you become apathetic, that you don't care anymore. In addition, the lack of organizational caring can be seen in the unrestrained statements made by leaders. Now, what do I mean by an unrestrained statement? Well, an unrestrained statement is one that an organizational leader makes kind of off the cuff, or when they may think that not many people are listening, or when they're just frustrated and upset. One of my participants actually stated in my interview with this person during the research that his manager's direct words were, and I quote, I don't give a blank about HR, and I don't give a blank about abuse and neglect. Keep the money rolling. Now, how would you feel if your manager or a corporate leader made that kind of a statement? Well, even if it was said in private, you know about the office grapevines. So it traveled all through the company. And when this happened, this leads to a belief that every employee is replaceable. If you want to keep your job, according to the organization, you're just going to have to deal with whatever we give to you. Well, this causes employees to believe that if you don't care about me, then I won't care about you either. Now, this is not a tit for tat situation. In reality, this is a self-preservation mechanism. If you're working in an environment in which the company doesn't care about you and has made it, in at least your mind's eye, very obvious that they don't care, then to preserve yourself and to maintain some sanity, you have to stop caring as much about them. And when this happened, this loops back into presenteeism behaviors, which are basically that the employee is on the job in body only, but their minds and hearts are someplace else, as well as disengagement, which is a very extreme form of presenteeism when the employee simply no longer cares. Now, if you have this type of presenteeism and disengagement throughout your organization, your company is going to see mediocre results from a lackadaisical workforce. The only way that a company can be vibrant and achieve dramatic goals is if the workforce is engaged. And if the company doesn't care about its workers, there is little chance that they will be engaged. So the challenge is how to develop mutual empathy. So it's not just empathy from the organization to the employee, but it's two-way empathy that the employee also cares about the organization. When the organization cares about the employees and the employees reciprocate by caring about the organization and its goals, there are higher levels of engagement, increased job satisfaction, a decreased level of turnover and attrition, and a culture that is a vibrant workplace that is capable, willing, and excited about achieving organizational goals. So, how do you build empathy? Well, there are two parts to building mutual empathy. First of all, the organization needs to identify its needs. Now, the company's fiduciary responsibility to shareholders and investors focuses a lot on profitability. But in order to meet its fiduciary responsibilities, the organization also is required to take into account the emotional responsibility that it has to all of its stakeholders, and that includes employees. So when you're identifying organizational needs, you need to address the who, what, when, where, why, and how in your goal setting. Who is going to be doing the work to achieve the goal? What do you expect them to do? When are the due dates? Are they reasonable? Where is this work going to be taking place? Very importantly, why are we doing this or attempting this strategy or tactic instead of any other strategy or tactic? And then finally, how are you going to do it? It's not enough just to say that we need to increase profits. How are you going to do it? You need to give employees a roadmap in order to achieve those goals. Now, when you're creating these goals, you have to remember that goals don't exist in isolation. One of the biggest problems that I see with many corporations is that there is no cascading effect of goals from the strategic big kahuna goals that deal with vision and mission down to the operational goals, which exist out over a few years, and then finally down to the tactical or daily goals that employees need to achieve. When you can identify the who, what, when, where, why, and how of all three levels of goals, this creates a synergy, and employees understand what is expected of them, and it answers any of their questions, addresses their fears, and increases their feelings of security. Remember the old adage of knowledge is power? Well, this also is involved with goal setting. Also, remember that prolonged urgency decreases urgency. We've all been told that in order to motivate employees, you need to create a sense of urgency. That gets the adrenaline going and it helps spur them on. But if everything is important, then nothing is important. If everything is urgent, then nothing is urgent. Because when everything is urgent, no one in the organization really knows where to focus their energies and attention. And eventually what employees will do is they'll pull back and they become extremely apathetic. Even if you're using automation to achieve your goals, automation still requires people to keep it relevant. In other words, in today's environment, high tech has to be complemented with high touch. And when you have this combination of high tech and high touch, you have an environment that is much more conducive to organizational success. And all of these things focus on the human needs of your workplace. It answers their questions, it increases their security, and it motivates them to put forth their best effort. So to remember the key takeaway here, compassion enhances profits. Insensitivity to employees decreases profits. Now, the second part of building mutual empathy focuses on considering the human needs when you're goal setting. Now, goals should be stretch goals. That's important because if you don't have goals that stretch your employees and they're doing the same thing day in and day out, they're going to become bored. And boredom is closely akin to apathy, and the lack of growth can lead to burnout. Goals should stretch employees, but they shouldn't break them. In other words, employees should feel a little bit uncomfortable, but still confident that they will be able to do what is expected of them. Growth always zigzags. There's no linear line between point A to point B to point C. And because this growth is in a zigzag pattern, it requires letting go of some of your past beliefs or activities or methods of doing things. To let go, employees need to believe that they will be supported by the organization. If they don't feel that they're supported by the organization, there's a tendency for them to just give up on trying to reach the goal and just revert back to what they did in the past. So when you introduce these new stretch goals to employees, you need to communicate the rationale behind the decisions that are related to those goals. Again, this is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. When employees understand these questions and these questions have been answered to them, and the only way that you can really answer these questions is to ask the employees questions. When they understand what's going on, this will allay a lot of potential fears. People in general tend to fear what they don't know, but if employees know what's going on and why it's going on and how they fit into the whole mix, usually they will be less fearful and they will be more engaged in the process. And when you create goals, make sure you're focusing on the employee's strengths. Focus on what the employees can do. When employees achieve goals, this increases their levels of esteem, and they feel better not only about themselves, but about the organization as a whole. If you expect an employee to do something that they don't already know how to do, then provide them with training, coaching, and support to help them develop what they should be able to do. And this is where mentors come in. Mentors can really enhance an employee's professional development. Support is essential to growth and skill development. By having a mentor, someone whom the employee trusts and can talk to as they embark on this path to stretch goals, this shows that the company really cares about them. It's not just, hey, go learn how to do this new thing, and if you don't do it right, we're going to nail you for it. No, that's not the way to do it. You need to consider the human needs that are related to these goals. And by having a coach or a mentor, peer support, and any type of support that the organization can provide, this reaffirms for the employee that the organization actually cares about him or her. And even better, a little appreciation goes a long way. We were all taught as children to say thank you and appreciate what other people do for us. However, thank yous seem to have gone the way of the dinosaurs in many organizations. And when an employee has worked hard and is not appreciated, the organization doesn't thank them for what they've done, this proves to the employee that the organization really doesn't care about me. And as I said before, a lack of organizational caring is very conducive to burnout. Remember, the perception that the organization doesn't care about me indicated that the employees burned out in 100% of the participants in my study. So say thank you, provide recognition, even give little unanticipated surprise rewards to employees. These are the types of things that prove to employees that you care about them. And when they feel that you care about them, they are less likely to burn out. And if they're less likely to burn out, they'll be more engaged and satisfied in their jobs. So the key takeaway here, there is no company without employees. Employees are the company. So take care of your people in order to take care of your organization. And remember that the focus is on authentic care and not just lip service. So perhaps Maya Angelou said it best. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. All of these characteristics, passion, compassion, humor, and style, are innately human traits. And these human traits will only be manifested in the organization if the employees feel safe and cared about by the organization.